recording and also record via Teams, right? Okay, great. So we're recording, as I mentioned, probably going to be a quick class, primarily because, again, we just want to concentrate on the stuff that you're doing, right? So with that said, and let me just go over this. So I think we're recording already. Great. So again, guys, quick reminder, right? Assessments due on Sunday. So again, every single one of you already has a task. So what are you going to be submitting? Okay, you're submitting two things. Because you're part of a production, we need your files. So for example, we have Podge here. So you're doing we're doing a main prop. We need, if it's already textured, I think it already is. We need that object, and we need it inside OneDrive, right? So what this means is, and let me just open that. Make sure to have access to our OneDrive page, and also make sure that you update the files there. So let me just open that particular um, uh FBX. You want to save FBX is fine, but you want to save a Maya file, primarily because we're using Maya. So basically that means the problem we have with FBX, right, is let me just look for that folder first. Quick sec. There you go. Okay, so there you go. In the forest. Okay, and we're using a Maya project folder, and that's their scene directory. That's your prop. So you probably want to put the prop there. Okay. So the reason why FBX probably won't be enough is because let me just make sure our chat. Okay, so the reason why FBX is not going to be enough is because to send it to Maya, to make it usable in Maya, right? You have to connect the shaders. So you're probably using something like Substance Painter. Not sure if you're using one UV tile. So it's really just creating a shader inside Arnold, or you can just use a standard surface one and connecting the textures. Okay, so the textures, I guess, and this is consistent with pretty much everything, guys. A quick reminder with regards to how you normally use textures, right? So let me just show you. So again, what you get with the FBX is, yes, you think you can just import the FBX file, but the problem is when you import the FBX file, it imports a Blinn material, and it's not just easy as converting that into a standard surface. So you need to make sure that you're using a standard surface inside Maya or any application really. So the idea behind that is, for example, if I just look for a character, maybe I'll look for Gecko. Okay. So you need to make sure it's textured. You also need to make sure that, let's go to the materials, right? That the connections of your texture and the type of material you're using is correct. So it's going to be an AI standard surface. You can use an open PBR, that's fine. Or you can just use a standard surface. But the idea is your diffuse is going to be plugged into the color. The diffuse is usually sRGB. If you have metalness, if you're using that particular workflow, the metalness should be raw. And at the same time, the color balance has to have alpha is luminance. Otherwise, it won't really reflect, or otherwise you need someone else to do it. So the idea is, if you're working in a production and someone else needs to come in and convert your files into something usable in the production, you're taking time from someone else. So if I'm the producer, I have to pay someone else to do it. So the idea is, if you are using a different application, you have to make sure when you export that object, it's usable inside Maya. So what this means is the object is there, it's properly scaled. So on top of properly scaled, the material is correct. It's the material we're using inside Maya. So that's a standard surface. On top of that, you need to make sure that the textures connected to the standard surface is correct. So that means, as I mentioned, if it's metalness, it's raw, and it's also alpha is luminance. And then on top of that, let's see. What else? Let's look for the material. If you probably have some sort of normal map. Sorry, so for the normal map, it's plugged in there. Again, normal map is supposed to be raw as well. So we're not doing it, we're not treating it as an sRGB, it's data. So it has to be treated as raw. And then on top of that, if you have specularity as well, similar stuff. So specularity is also treated as raw. So that's specular. There you go. Okay, so it's also treated as raw, and then alpha is luminance. Uh, but again, there's different ways of exporting your textures from Substance Painter. So if you're exporting it where you plugged in the metalness in the red channel and the specularity in the blue channel, then you have to be able to convert it properly inside Maya. Okay, so again, the idea is just make sure it's usable already, and no one else needs to come in and modify the file or update the file into a Maya file. Okay, if that does that answer your question? Okay, great. So again, guys, quick reminder: what you're submitting is again updated Maya file, right? So updated 3D file. So a lot of you will ask, why not? For me, I don't really. I'm software agnostic, meaning I don't really care if it's we're using Maya or Blender or Houdini or something like that, because I'm experienced enough to understand that if you're working, especially for example, if you're freelance, if you're working as a technical director or maybe as a modeler, you might jump from, let's say, a Blender studio to maybe, which is really rare. You probably have smaller Blender studios, but you might jump from a Maya studio there where they primarily use Maya, or it might be a Cinema 4D studio, or it might be a combination of both. The biggest studios, honestly, they don't really care. They have systems that allow you to use different softwares. So we use something like Universal Scene Description that allows you to just bring or use different softwares. But again, uh, the more advanced you get, the more it's not important necessarily what software you use. Yes, you get to be really good at the software, but especially if it's a medium or not really low levels task. So, for example, if you're doing effects, most likely in a studio you'll be using something like Houdini, not because you prefer Houdini instead of Blender. It's because there's just a lot of stuff Houdini is able to do that other softwares are not able to do. So, but for example, if it's modeling, so it might be, there might be situations where for modeling it doesn't really matter, meaning if you're a modeler and you think you're a modeler, you should be able to do it inside Maya, inside Blender, or any other application. Uh, Primarily because the techniques and the tools are similar. So if that makes sense, right? So again, we're using Maya. That's our that's the project software we're using. So you just need to make sure that, for example, if you're doing an environment, for some of you who are doing environments and you prefer using Blender, that's fine, but you have to be able to provide us with a Maya file, right? Because if someone else needs to go in and convert your stuff into Maya, then again, we're wasting money and we're wasting resources. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay, so with that said, I need you guys to update your file. I need you to share that. So don't submit the file, otherwise you'll end up with a really big file inside, MyLearn. Just update the stuff in OneDrive. So again, I already talked. For example, for if it's Podge, put your, scene and your textures. So maybe your object, you put it here under props, and then maybe your textures, put it under source images, and maybe you have a folder there for your particular for your particular object, right? Make sure that the Maya file works. meaning you open it and check if the connections are there and if it's scaled correctly, right? So a common mistake is you model something in a different application, you use the units there, and you didn't bother to check if the scaling that you have inside, let's say, a Blender is the same as Maya. So what happens is someone else needs to scale it up, and scaling it up is not as easy as just scaling it. The proportions have to be correct. So we already talked about proportions last week. So no such issue with Sathita, I think, because you're doing lighting and you're probably doing it inside Maya. The question is, are there other lighting applications? There are quite a lot. If, for example, if you're working in Animal Logic or Netflix Studios, they even have their own lighting system separate. So it's their own proprietary software, right? And there's something, there's also Katana. Houdini is popular as well. But as I mentioned, if you're a lighter, you have to be able to jump different applications. If you're a look development artist and you're primarily focused on lighting, you have to be comfortable with different types of software. Um, and you'll actually discover that if you have a look at job listings. So if you have a look at job listings, they will ask you to be proficient in certain or willing to learn different tools. Okay. So I think Mark, not sure. Let me just check what Mark is doing. Similar to, I think, Peter, right? So Peter is doing the, for this one you're doing research, and if you're not able to export it in Maya for now, that's fine. Because we're trying to figure out how you're able to create that certain effect in the application of your choice, and that's Houdini. Figuring it out how to export it to Maya is something we can have a look at in the second assessment. If again you haven't explored that particular aspect of the workflow. But anyway, let me just go back here. Again, I'm just looking at who's doing what. So checking with Mark. Mark is doing the platform. So this is competitive between you and William. So you create your own version of the platform, Mark, and then William is doing his own version of the platform. Let me just check. Anyone here who's on campus? Just checking. Anyone who's on campus at this stage? I'm just curious if anyone else is there. And again, the reason I prefer for now to be here is I can access your file easily. So anyone on campus at this stage? David, Sathita, are you guys on campus or are you just joining us online? Uh, Sorry? You're on campus today? Okay, great. Okay, no worries. I'm just checking. Okay, either way, right? So as I mentioned, what you're submitting, everyone, is you're submitting your 3D files. Make sure to put that in OneDrive. Make sure it's usable already. So again, the idea is it has to be, if you're using a different application, and this is very common in smaller studios, right? If you prefer using a different application, you just need to make sure that what asset you create there is usable already in production and no one else needs to, modify it for you, right? So that's one thing. That's the first thing you need to submit. Let me just check. So that means for Mark, it's going to be, I guess, we talked about the workflow for this one, right? So for Mark, you're doing the platform. So that means you just go to the environments. So open that Forest Lab. Again, you need to make sure you have access to OneDrive, right? So you open that Forest Lab, and the idea is you're modifying the platform elements, right? So this is, the platform element is, again, the reason why we're changing stuff. So again, the idea is the platform elements there. See the platform, or you can call that roads. It looks so bare at this stage. So we just want to find ways to populate that. Maybe it might be lampposts. But again, uh, um, a lot of you go in and then you just try to, look at it and then try to think about what things you can put. It's we never do that in production, everyone. So again, what we do in production is you actually need to research, right? You actually need to think about, look at the style. For example, for this one, you look at the style, you look at the genre, and then you look at images, you look at, you explore, uh, maybe Star Wars or Star Trek, or or your favorite movies, and see how they approach creating that space. So it's an architecture design, exterior design thing, environment design thing. And then you think about, and then you use that reference or mood board to, populate that scene here, right? You can also change the textures if you want. Okay, but basically, Mark, you just save as your version. So maybe environment forest, Mark, don't overwrite the existing file. So this is going to be Mark, and that's going to be your version. Again, you don't have to do anything on everything else. You just need to concentrate on the platform elements there. Okay, so that's an environment design, environment layout task. Okay, let's see. David is creating a prop. So if you're using a different application, David, just make sure that you put that file, you have a Maya file with the textures, maybe put that under props and then make sure it's saved there, right? Make sure it's workable. If you're planning to use something like Blender for modeling it, then just make sure whatever model you have, it's converted into a Maya file, because that's our project folder, and make sure that Maya file works. Okay. Uh, and I think everyone else, I think we already talked about that. For the students doing layout and previs, so I think that's, so let me just have a quick look. So the students doing layout, so that's Leo and Haley, right? That basically means you just need to, make sure that your Maya file is there. Okay. And I think if I have a look at it, if I look at layout, I can see that, nope. Maybe I'm not sure if that's, you probably want to put your name, guys. So maybe that's Haley's scene. So just make sure that you save your file there. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. So with that said, okay, sa theta, it's lighting. So basically, just make sure under master lighting, you have your own version there. So you start with that master. Maybe I think you start off with the environment, and then you have your own light, and then just put in master lighting underscore environment sa theta, for example. So that's your version of the lighting for the environment. Okay. So is this clear for everyone? One final check if this is clear. Updating 3D files. And the reason why this is important for me is because if it's not there, so if I don't see any files there, and if you take a long, because I don't want a situation where I constantly ask for your files. So I don't want a situation where, oh, where's the prop? Where's the textures? So if it's not there, we'll probably just continue using something else. So if it's not there over the next 2 weeks, then we'll probably just move on, even without that particular prop or without that particular file. Okay, just make sure it's updated there, because we don't want that situation of constantly checking if you shared your file in OneDrive. Okay, so that's one important thing. You don't submit that in MyLearn. Just make sure to put that in OneDrive. What you will submit in MyLearn, though, is a showcase of your work. And we have questions with regards to how you showcase your work. My recommendation is basically you're just treat it as a job application, right? So you're trying to showcase your particular skill set. So, for example, if it's Podge, for example, you're showcasing your asset creation skills. So maybe there's an application for a 3D modeler, for example, right? So notice that when they're looking for 3D modelers, they're going to be looking for demo reels focusing on environment modeling or focusing on that aspect of that particular job, right? So, for example, if they're looking for a 3D modeler or asset creator, they probably don't want to see much or any character animation work. So you want to create a reel or a showcase focusing on that specific element. Okay? So what I want you to do when I talk about showcasing your work, I'm really talking about showcasing what you did to create that particular asset or to complete that particular task. Okay, so there are a few considerations here when you're trying to showcase your work. Okay, you want to be able to showcase your 3D skills, meaning you want to concentrate on skills that are really high value. Okay, so you're showcasing your 3D skills. You're showcasing that you're really good in Houdini. You're showcasing that you're really good in modeling and you're a fast modeler, stuff like that, right? So that's one thing. You're showcasing your 3D skills. Okay. Um, you're also showcasing your design and creative skills. So again, um, if for example you did a lot to design the character or design the prop, you want to be able to showcase that design aspect, right? Because that's of high value, meaning you're not only modeling, you're also showing that your ability to design things. Okay, uh, understanding the bigger picture is important, meaning if you're able to showcase in your demo reel or your submission that you understand the processes involved for developing a prop or maybe creating your layout sequence, that is going to be really helpful. And I'll demonstrate, okay, what I mean by this. And at the same time, if you just present your model and let's say you just create a turntable of the model that you created, guess what? Like almost any graduate can probably do that. So what you want to do is you want to showcase things that will really help you stand out. Is it, for example, if you created the model and you spent a lot of time detailing certain, let's say you detailed the vents, or you spent a lot of time creating, um, you know, um, patterns and creating, let's say, really high level detail on certain aspects of the model, then you want to concentrate on those aspects, right? So, for example, if you model the gun and you really concentrated on the detail and the brand and the logo on the gun, then showcase that aspect of it. Because if you just show me the gun and and then it's going to be, it's just a generic showcase of it doing a turntable. Again, I'm telling you, everyone else is able to do that. So how can I differentiate your work with someone else's work? Okay, so you have to find ways, right, to be able to differentiate your work. So, for example, if you're doing lighting, for example, Sathita, and you're just showing the final images of your lighting, as I mentioned, everyone can do that. Okay, so you have to focus on things that are of high value, right? What really stands out. So maybe the thing that stands out is you did a lot of research to create that lighting effect. You researched on, magical dust or magical, environments, and you played around with different types of color combinations. You want to be able to showcase that particular aspect, right? So again, you want to showcase things that are of high value. So let me just show you. Some of them are good examples, some of them are not. But see, this is why this is a good example, is because number one, right? Uh, Especially if you model this one, guys. Okay, so sorry, if you designed it. Okay, if you designed it, you definitely want to be able to show your designs and your sketches, because that's high value, meaning you can already show the studio that you can design a character but also model and implement that design. Okay, so that's really useful. So this one though, the artist didn't design the character, but why did he show that design? He showed that design because he has that unique ability to really convert the appeal of the design character into 3D. So notice how the final 3D, he actually ended up posting it. Notice how closely the appeal of the final 3D character, it's hard getting that appeal. So if you have a drawing and it looks very appealing, it's oftentimes it's hard to convert that appeal into 3D. But this artist was able to do it. Notice that he didn't create the concept, but he was able to implement. And I'm not a fan of the face, but he was able to, implement the design and transfer the appeal from the 2D design into the 3D character. So this is a good example there. So another thing is, notice that, see, that's a good way. So why did the person do this? The person did this because he spent a lot of time posing the character and also making sure that there's enough detail there. So see, notice that there's a lot of detail there with the texturing and how he modeled, let's say, the proportions of the legs. So he really wanted to focus that area. Even the gun bit. See, notice that he spent a lot of time creating the facial expression, modeling the hair perhaps, and getting that appeal right? So notice that he created a close-up of the face because he spent a lot of time with on the face. He's showcasing his ability to, you know, transfer the appeal of the character into 3D and also showcasing his actual modeling skills when it comes to faces. So some of you are good face modelers, some of you aren't, but he feels that he is, so that's why he's showcasing that bit. Okay, now a lot of you will just end up creating a single image or maybe a turntable without any context. So a lot of you will just end up creating a turntable like that. It's not even post. And as I mentioned, a lot of graduates are able to do that. Okay, so you just have to be able to separate yourself from other people. So again, I like that idea. So similar stuff. See, notice that you're showing the design here. You're even trying to implement. You're telling everyone, you know what? I'm very good at implementing a design. I'm very good at looking at the design, capturing the essence of the design, and converting that into 3D. You can even showcase things like, let me just see. There you go. So I like that, for example. This one. No, that. So the reason why this is important is because, yes, it's concentrating on modeling, but notice that they turned on the wireframe. It's relatively easy to do inside Maya or any application, really. You turned on the wireframe, and the reason for that is you want to be able to show everyone, you know what, this is an optimal model. It's ready for rigging. It's ready for animation. So why is that important? Because it does, as I mentioned earlier, okay, it does showcase your understanding of the bigger picture. So that means, yes, I did a model, but I understand this model is going to be used for rigging and animation later on. So I've created that model with a topology that is really optimal for animation. So that means you understand that, you know what, I need to make sure, or if, for example, if you're creating a game asset, you understand the bigger picture that, you know what, this is a game asset. It's not a hero element. So I don't want to spend 5,000 or 20,000 polygons or 20,000 vertices or faces for that because it's just a side prop. So I want to do it in, let's say, 500 to 1,000 polygons, okay, or 1,000 faces. So again, you're understanding that it's not an important prop. It's a side prop on the background. You don't want to spend like 5,000 or 20,000, polys creating that prop when it's just a side prop. So you're again showcasing your understanding of the bigger picture. Okay. So maybe a few more. So hopefully that's making sense, guys. So you see, I like that because the reason why I like that is you're showcasing your detail work. So this person really wanted to showcase the detail work that he did for that prop, meaning he spent a lot of time creating the tires perhaps and creating, this aspect. So notice that he created it in such a way that there's 4 views, although I'm not a big fan. But again, it's just a way, okay, for you to showcase different, the detail work that you've done there, okay? So why is this important? This is important because, again, this shows me the person's understanding of UV sets. For example, if I am a game producer and I'm hiring artists, I'm looking at it, you know what? For example, this particular model, we probably need 5 UV sets because we need a lighting UV set and we might need to add another UV set where, again, oftentimes with props, right? You get 3 different versions of the prop. So what do I mean by that? For example, the same prop might go on a muddy surface or a muddy environment. So what needs to happen is we need to be able to modify the texture to show that, it's going it's now muddied, or it might be in a snow environment and we need to show that version of the prop where there's snow. And we usually do that by creating different UV sets. So the moment I see this, that he understands UV sets, that's exciting for me. That means I don't have to explain to that person that I need multiple UV sets because we're doing that prop in different environments. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Why is the software important? The software is important because, for example, if I'm, sorry guys, so if our studio is Substance Painter, Blender, I want to see if this person knows how to use Blender and knows how to use Substance Painter. So that software, software use is useful for me, right? With regards to information. You might ask, why can't I just ask the artist? I have like 1,000 applications, right? Or I need to go through maybe 100 reels. I probably won't have time to email each one of those applicants to ask them what software they use. So this for me is very important, useful, because now I can see it directly, right? Maybe I have time to look at the resume. Maybe I only have time to look at the reel. Okay, so that's what I'm saying, guys. Okay, that's really useful because that gives me a lot of information. Okay, that's useful as well. Maybe not to bigger studios, but for smaller studios, it just shows them that, you know what, you understand, PBR, and then you understand, the different maps, although this is really easy to do anyway inside Substance Painter, right? See, I like that. Okay, even showcasing your UVs, guys, just allows me to see, you know what, this person lays out the UV or maximizes the UV well. So I can see that there's not a lot of blank spaces. I can see that the textile density is consistent, meaning, see, that's probably the size of the main part of the vehicle, and everything else is in proportion to that particular, is in proportion. So the UVs are proportional to one another. So this, just showing me this, allows me to see, you know what, you understand UVs and you understand textile density as well. Okay, so again, what I'm suggesting, and I'm having a hard time with this mic here. So what am I suggesting, guys, is, again, you can treat it. You're still going to be marked if you just submit a regular showcase, right? But the idea is your showcase is a way for you to showcase your 3D skills, your design skills. So that means your mood board, your ability to explore different designs, and it's also going to be your brand, meaning you have to show stuff there that makes you stand out. Otherwise, what's the difference between your work and everyone else's? For example, especially with modeling, guys, like everyone who graduates might know how to model, but you need to be able to separate yourselves, right, from other modelers. So again, it might be your detail work. It might be, you're very good at laying out your UVs. It might be the technical aspect of it, your eye for detail. So you want to be able to showcase all of that stuff. Okay. So does that make sense for everyone? So with regards to, again, now creating a really good show reel, right, or a really good demo reel takes time. Okay, or a really good showcase. So for example, you might choose to animate it, you might not. Animating will probably be out of the question for you guys. But see, notice that this person, again, really spent time, right, rendering the different passes involved for that lighting. So this is a typical look dev lighting reel. So you're showcasing different passes, right? So some of you might ask, for example, some of you who are doing the lighting might ask, why are we doing that? This person shows his understanding that most probably what will happen is I'm going to render everything as passes, and I need to submit that to the compositing team. So this person understands that their lighting and their rendering and how they approach look development will probably end with them exporting passes and exporting AOVs to compositing. So this person showcased his understanding, or her understanding of that, or well, his. So again, that's a good way of, again, showcasing your understanding of the bigger picture, right? So similar stuff. See, I like that. The reason why you want to show that, again, these are passes, but it might also be lighting. stuff. So see, different lighting scenarios. So look dev, uh, maybe for the students doing the props, this is also very common, right? When we showcase our work, we showcase it in different lighting scenarios. So some of you might ask why. So maybe not this, those are passive, but that one. Okay? The reason why we like animating the light going around the character is we want to see what it looks like in different lighting scenarios. Because you know what? If you just submit a still, it might look good in that particular angle. But if we change the lighting scenario, the specularity is wrong. The subsurface scattering is wrong. So see, if we have something like this, I can easily see, you know what, different lighting scenarios, your shading works really well. Okay, so again, some of you might ask, is that really an important thing? Well, if you want to separate yourselves from other artists, then it's definitely going to be important, right? Because as I mentioned, if you just submit a turntable, everyone else can do that. Okay, so again, see, I like that because that shows me, a lot. So see, that's depth of field. So I really like those, because this is something a lot of look development artists don't really do. They don't explore lens effects, and they don't really look at what a real photograph looks like. So in a real photograph, there's a lot of aberration, there's a lot of inconsistency. So there might be dust on the lens, there might be inconsistencies on the lens, and capturing those inconsistencies and aberrations in your rendering can really help you separate yourself from other artists. So again, I'm just demonstrating that. Okay, so for environments, if you're doing environments, you're showcasing your environments. Maybe it's modeled, maybe it's textured, maybe it's not textured. This is a good example of this is a long time ago. But the idea behind that, guys, is you're just demonstrating it in a lighted scenario, right? And you're also showcasing, the topology that you did. So for example, this one. There you go. So see, that's a topology. So a lot of people ask, a lot of artists or a lot of students ask me, if I'm doing an environment, do I need to light it? Again, the answer is, would the person or would the studio who's trying to hire people appreciate that more if you light it, or it wouldn't matter? Okay, so those are questions you need to ask, right? Will the person looking at it appreciate it more if I just did a little bit of lighting? So those are things that you need to think. Or will my work show, will it look better in a in a lighting condition that I created, compared to just showcasing it as modeled stuff without any light? Okay, so those again are stuff that you just need to think about. Okay, so for the students doing layout, similar stuff. Okay, so students doing layout and doing story, the question is, how do you showcase that? Lots of ways you can do that. Again, you're a cinematographer, storyteller. So oftentimes what we like doing is we like to show people, right, that we can take a storyboard, or it might be a shot list. We can take a shot list and we can convert that and make that into an actual 3D scene. So that is why for layout artists, you see a lot of this type of reels where you have a storyboard there, and the layout artist is able to demonstrate that he can take or she can take a storyboard and then create an actual scene out of that, right? And then also implement the different shots and lay out and design the shot with the storyboard in mind. Okay, so see, notice how that actually works really well. Okay, so again, that is a good example for that. So this is previous work, guys. That's layout. See, the animation is really rough, but take note that again, what the idea is, you're demonstrating that you're able to get a story or even create a story and then uh, convert that into a 3D scene. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so similar, lastly, with effects, similar stuff. Okay, especially in research and development. So it's very common for effects research, and maybe I can just I can just Google that VFX research R&D job. So oftentimes, right, when you're in effects, oftentimes what will happen is, and I probably need to look, but what usually happens is you spend like 2 3 months, especially if it's a complicated effect, you spend 2 3 months just doing tests in terms of how to achieve a particular effect. So for example, I'm just thinking about it. It's because I don't watch a lot of movies. But let's say it's Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange has a particular, he creates the shield, right? Or maybe it's the Iron Man thing. So the Iron Man where, it's nanotechnology transforming Stark into Iron Man. How do you create that effect? Or it might be Transformers. We usually see, like, you spend like 3 4 months just trying to figure out how to make that work. And then again, what you're doing is you're showcasing your ability to do research, right? So what that probably means is you're going to spend, if you're creating a reel for your ability to do research, what that means is you're just going to give them snippets of your approach. So that might mean, screenshots of different smaller effects. So see, I like that. So the idea behind that is it might not be usable to converting 2 to 3, but what you're showing is you can take that might be an effect for something more complicated, right? But what you're demonstrating is, I took a simple scenario, I tested it out. This might be useful for different scenarios in the future. Okay? So again, it's research and development stuff. Okay? This is a really old Houdini version. Okay? So is that making sense for everyone? So again, what I want you to guys to do is when you're thinking about demonstrating or showcasing your work, right? What you're again doing is you're showcasing your not only your 3D skills, if you have design skills or research skills that you want to demonstrate, make sure it's visible in the reel. Make sure that you give them an understanding that you know the bigger process, meaning you show them, the different tools that you use. If, for example, you use an advanced way of creating your UVs, or you want to show them that, I'm not just a regular modeler. I'm a modeler who understands the importance of textile density and importance of laying out UVs and creating UV sets. Then show that in your showcase for assessment one, right? Again, you want to be able to make yourself stand out. So if you just show me, for example, oh, okay, this is the model and I created, and this is my turntable. Again, it's okay. You might be able to pass or get the credit, but that particular showcase won't be useful for you as a portfolio because, as I mentioned, right, like 70-90% of the students who graduate might be able to just create that version. You have to be able to separate yourself from others. Okay, so just checking if that's clear before we have a look at any issues that you might have. So David, Mark, Nyop, Peter, Podge, Satita, is that clear? Again, there's no wrong or right way. I'm not going to prescribe specific things you need to do, right, in your showcase. I'm going to leave it up to you. So I'm not going to tell you, give me 3 images and then give me a close-up of your model and then give me a turntable after and then give me the UVs. I won't do that because, again, I don't necessarily know what you want to so that might not be what you want to showcase, or it's not really how you view yourself as an artist. Maybe you view yourself as a 3D artist that's really good at designing. So maybe you spend more time showing your designs and mood boards and sketches. So again, I leave it up to you. Okay. So with that said, any other questions before we have a look? No questions here. Is this clear what you're submitting? Again, 3D file and then a showcase, right? What that showcase looks like, I'm going to leave it up to you. Okay, but just make sure, again, just make sure that you think about all of those things, okay, when you're creating your showcase. Okay, great. So with that said, I'll just go around checking if anyone needs help here. Again, the idea is the supposed to be the idea is you share your work, and I understand that you have a lot of stuff happening. Uh, so for example, here I'm just looking at your week 3. So Nyop, for example, is working on his stuff. That's fine. That's good. So, for example, an example for Nyop. So Nyop spent a long time really thinking about what that transport will look like. So he's thinking it looks like a crab. So if it was me, I will really like to showcase my thought process and design process for coming up with that crab idea for a transport. That means I'm going to demonstrate a lot of my mood boards. I'm going to show them. If I have sketches, I'll refine my sketches and really show them that I spent a lot of time breaking down the design. So Nyop, for example, demonstrated a breakdown of the design in week 1. So I think if I remember correctly, he demonstrated, right? So let me just quickly show here. Oops. So I actually wanted you guys to do it here. Sorry. So Nyop, for example, spent time demonstrating the design, I think here. So what I'm saying is that's probably something I really want to showcase in or show in my showcase. See those designs? See, again, it's not refined, so maybe I'll end up refining it a little bit. I just want to demonstrate that I spent time thinking about breaking down what my model is and what my design is. So what the head looks like, what the legs look like, etc. Okay? And the idea behind that is maybe Nyop is really showing to everyone that, you know what, I'm a concept artist, designer, and also a modeler. Okay, so again, think about those things. Okay, so Peter, question.
For the showcase videos, I know you said you don't want to place upon us specifics, but how long does the showcase need to be for? Because the ones that I've seen that you've shown us have only gone for like a minute 30.
For this one, as long as you need. Okay, so the idea is as long as you need to be able to showcase the work, because what you'll end up doing afterwards. So maybe for this class, it's just me looking at it, looking at what you did. But if you want to use it for your portfolio, then you end up editing that one, right? So maybe you edit it to something shorter. But for this class, however long you need to demonstrate that is fine. Okay, so if you want to limit it to a minute or a minute or two, that's fine as well. Okay, is it now the question is that going to be portfolio worthy, meaning can I already put that in my portfolio if it's 2 minutes? Probably not, so you need to just find ways to edit that in the future. But again, at least the idea is you have that longer piece. Okay,
Thank you.
great.
And we don't need to write down a report or anything,
Yes,
just the showcase.
that's right. So
All right, just want to
the
make sure.
yep.
Just want to
So the
make sure.
weekly challenge. So the idea behind that is if you've done all the weekly challenges really well, your assessment is really just a compilation of those weekly challenges. So maybe you demonstrated your design in week 1, your base model in week 2, your UVs and textures in week 3, and then you already have your final model. So if I'm doing it, it's really just perhaps a compilation of all those. I'll create a video out of that and maybe a few other things, and then that's it. Okay. Yours might be a bit different because you're doing a lot of research R&D stuff. So let's see what you
Yeah,
get,
yeah,
what you come up with. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So where were we? Okay. So hopefully that's clear. I guess I just want to check with everyone here if you need help with anything. So starting with David. So David is creating the prop. I'm assuming that you're still in the stage of modeling it at this stage. So just make sure to share that process, right? And then again, it's still due on Sunday anyway. So if you guys need extensions as well, you can just let me know.
One question.
Yes.
For the assessment submission, I mean, not that. So we have to submit the showcase, but for the shared folder, should I put the Maya scene where I'm modeling the asset
Yeah.
there, or
Yeah.
because
So
I'm
you're modeling it separately, right? Are you doing it in Maya or are you doing it in another application?
I'm doing it in Maya.
Okay, so if you're doing it in Maya, my recommendation is to just um, you download OneDrive and then just sync the folder, so you can just use that as your project folder, and then you can just save your scenes directly under props. So under props here, and then any textures will be in your source images. So meaning source images here, or you can even just create a new folder. So the idea is this becomes your Maya project folder, right?
Okay.
But if you haven't synced yet, then you only have your own Maya project folder. Then just make sure when you're done, plug in the text, the object or the prop here, and then if you have textures, then make sure you plug the textures in the source images, or maybe you can even just create a new texture folder. But it should be
Where do I
under the project.
where do I put my effects, my file effects?
Yours, you don't need to, Peter, primarily because you're
Oh,
doing research R&D stuff, right?
all right, cool, cool, cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Um, Also about the props,
Yes.
uh, for this first assessment, we need to have the 3D model, the texturing shading. Do we need to rig it or?
No rigging needed. So we'll do it in the second assessment, perhaps.
Okay.
Okay. Textures. So the idea behind this is so again, the idea behind the props, guys, is these are what we call so they are non-hero props. So as I mentioned, right, they probably won't feature in any close-ups unless
Yes,
you come up
of
with really
course.
good. So that's why I prefer it to have textures. If, for example, if it's a hero prop and we need to have a lot of modeling detail, then I'll probably just ask you to model it and then we'll texture it in the next assessment. But since this is not necessarily a hero prop, then I probably want you to, yeah, to model and texture in assessment one.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe just a few tips, guys. Okay, so for example, again, when you do something, try to do it as high level as you can, because if you just do it at a mid level, right, it's not going to help you in your portfolio much. Okay, so for example, if you're using Substance Painter and you're just using downloaded or the generic materials there in Substance Painter and you're just plugging in the textures, or sorry, plugging in the materials, yes, it might look good, but it probably won't impress any studio because they can easily see that you know what that's just a template material that you used. So if you want to use it for your portfolio, right? You just want to do it at a level, at a higher level, meaning spend more time developing or creating. So because the idea behind that is before you do the truth is before you do any material texturing in Substance Painter, you create like a material list. So you actually create a mood board for the materials you want to use. Uh, so from that mood board, you implement that, and then you develop the materials that actually fit your mood board, right? So all I'm saying is just take it a step further because it might look good, but you're just using generic materials, and that won't have a lot of value if you want to use it in a portfolio piece in the future. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so with that said, so David's good. Peter, Sathita, just checking if you need help with anything. Sathita's good as well. Checking with Podge. So Podge, you good with any questions or issues at this stage? So Thitita is all good as well. So good. Okay. Podge. So Podge is good. Okay. Mark and Nyop. Just checking with Nyop. Uh, any issues with your anything of concern, Nyop? So you can type it in.
All good.
All good. Okay. Are you on campus or are you joining us online? Well, you're joining us online, but are you in campus?
No, I'm in at home right now.
Okay, great. Okay. So again, any issues, guys? Mark, everyone else, just make sure. Great. So all good. So again, for Mark, it's really just again, ideally you want to use Maya for that, although you can use Blender. But the idea is with Maya, you just update your scene. Sorry, just download OneDrive and make sure you sync the folder, and you have resources for OneDrive there, so you know how to. Again, for the students who are not very familiar with OneDrive, just make sure to have a look at our week 3 topics, guys, because I think I shared some um, OneDrive stuff there with regards to how, or was that week 2? So that might be week 2. So there you go. So that's OneDrive. So how to sync on OneDrive, right? Okay, so I think that's it. So good job, share as much as you can. Just share. Let's see what you guys come up with, and then hopefully we get something useful for the rest of the production. So looking forward to seeing your work. What I'll do is I'll stop the recording here, and I'll stop recording. And then I'll see you guys next week. That's going to be on campus. We're going to, again, you'll have different roles going forwards. Maybe except for Peter. Peter might end up doing, if Peter is okay with it, it probably ends up continuing doing effects. But for the rest of you guys, you'll probably end up doing something else. Okay? And we'll talk about that next week. Okay? And that's it.